Welcome back, everyone. You are listening to the Feel Good Podcast Show. Here we tackle society's moments, and we hope you feel good after listening to this podcast. I'm your host, Miss Clara, and today we're talking about self-esteem. Self-esteem is a rather broad topic, but we're going to focus mainly on the dimensions of self-esteem. Be sure to subscribe because I wouldn't want you missing any episode. So subscribe to our page and continue to share the link so that we continue to grow in number. Self-esteem basically refers to a person's belief pertaining to their own worth or self-value. It has to do with feelings that a person experiences after following their sense of worthiness or unworthiness. It is an important aspect because it heavily influences a person's choice and decisions. In other words, it basically serves as a motivational tool by making sure that people take care of themselves and explore their full potential, or more or less likely. It is more or less likely to do that. It is somewhat an abstract concept, as it is hard for someone who already doesn't have it to know what it would be like to have that type of esteem. People with a higher self-esteem. We have people with a higher self-esteem and people with a lower self-esteem. So people with a higher self-esteem are sometimes those people that are motivated to take care of themselves and to persistently strive towards the fulfillment of personal goals and personal aspirations. On the contrary, there are people with lower self-esteem. These tend to regard themselves as unworthy of happy outcomes, and sometimes they deem themselves incapable of achieving good things. They tend to let important things slide. They also tend to be less persistent in terms of overcoming adversities. They may have the same kinds of goals with a person with higher self-esteem, but because they have a low self-esteem, they're generally less motivated to pursue them. Some people, like myself of course, love cars because cars are important to them. I'm sure if I had one, I'd take really, really good care of it as well. Now, people that already have cars make good decisions about small things like how to park it, how often to get it serviced, and how to drive it. Self-esteem is like that, except that it is yourself that you love. Do check out episode 5 where I talk more on self-love. Anyways, it is basically one self-love. When you believe that you're valuable, when you believe that you're important, you tend to carry yourself with great pride, and whatever decision you make enhances your value rather than break it down, simply because you have self-love. Self-esteem is thought of as occurring in a continuum. This simply means that it is thought to vary in amounts or magnitude from high to low across different individuals. Some are perceived, like I said earlier, to have a higher self-esteem as compared to others. It is also believed to vary in a way which you may choose to call proportionality or reasonableness. Hope that's a word. It turns out not all instances of high self-esteem are the same. Some people with high self-esteem have reached a certain stage in their journeys that is based on a series of real and actual accomplishments. They give themselves credit for being able to meet and overcome certain challenges. Their opinions of themselves are basically based on a series of real accomplishments. In contrast, there are people whose self-esteem seems to be a bit excessive, or rather out of proportion to their actual accomplishments. And this may seem a bit overrated to a fair-minded observer. It is usually based more on a sense of entitlement than actual achievements or rather actual accomplishments. This kind of self-esteem is considered to be less psychologically healthy than the more proportional variety of self-esteem. It is viewed as overly inflated, and it can be sometimes linked to narcissism. Just as it can be too high or overly inflated in proportion to one's accomplishments, it is surprising that it can be too low or underinflated as well. In many cases, people with low self-esteem have met adversities, yes, and they might have treated people well, and they do have a good feeling about themselves. However, for various reasons, including a tendency towards depression, anxiety, or sometimes obsessive perfectionism, or they start engaging in cognitive distortions, or sometimes it's simply because they have been exploited. This blinds them and diverts their attention from the actual accomplishments they have made. They then start perceiving themselves as failures, as they would have failed to meet an internalized and sometimes it's unreasonable. It is an unreasonable high standard of goodness, and thus displaying low self-esteem. It also corresponds to emotional distress when they do not meet that internal standard. However, as an outside observer, it seems I would see that type of person is worthy based on accomplishments that they would have made. And sometimes you have a difficulty understanding in how or why they fail to realize those accomplishments. I have come to realize that self-esteem is more complicated than a simple high versus low dimension, and it also varies both in terms of magnitude and value. It is a rather broad aspect, as I said earlier on. Unfortunately, this is my time today. This is as far as I can go. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and please don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. Please visit our other social media pages as well as Feel Good